After Ethan went bankrupt, he wanted to leave his last bit of money to his mistress, who was also his white moonlight. On our way to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize our divorce, we were both involved in a car accident. Then, we were reborn. After being reborn, Ethan immediately abandoned me and confessed his love to his white moonlight, Sophie. He gazed at her affectionately and said, "I wasn't brave enough before. Now that I have a second chance, I understand that people who love each other should be together." Of course, I let them be together. Ethan even brought Sophie over to flaunt in front of me. "Lila," he said smugly, "seeing me with Sophie makes you jealous, doesn't it? A man as outstanding as me. You'll never find another like me for the rest of your life." Everything changed when Liam, a brilliant young scientist, pulled me into his arms. Ethan panicked completely. I raised my hand, showing off the enormous diamond ring on my finger, and smiled blissfully. "Without you, my life has only gotten better." I opened my eyes and looked around. A group of people surrounded me. Their faces looked faintly familiar, stirring memories from a long time ago. This was unmistakably my college campus, specifically the sports field. How was this possible? I distinctly remember being on the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau with Ethan to finalize our divorce. Ethan had gone bankrupt. I stayed by his side for 3 days and nights, telling him I was willing to help him start over. Ethan stared at me for a long time before asking for a divorce. I thought he wanted to avoid dragging me down, but instead, he told me, "Sophie is pregnant. That's my only child, and I want her to keep it. After the divorce, you can have the house. Sophie needs a safe place to rest." His words hit me like a thunderclap, almost shattering me. I couldn't believe that my husband of 20 years, with whom I had shared everything, had another woman, and that she was carrying his child. What shocked me even more was that this woman turned out to be Sophie, a former college classmate in Ethan's white moonlight. "If you liked her so much back then," I asked him with difficulty, "why did you confess to me?" He sneered and said, "Sophie was too perfect. I didn't deserve her. But you," he laughed mockingly, "you had nothing. A few sweet words from me, and you were moved to tears." It turned out that everything in the past had been a delusion of my own making. I agreed to the divorce, but on the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, a bus suddenly lost control and crashed into us. And now, I had been reborn. The year's first grand confession scene was about to unfold. While I was lost in thought, someone shouted, and the crowd parted to make way. Ethan approached me slowly, holding a bouquet of red roses. Ethan's gaze was somewhat bewildered. He looked at the vibrant roses in his hands, then at me standing across from him. His expression shifted from shock to excitement. Around us, the other students began cheering. "He's going to confess. Get down on one knee already. Are you so nervous you forgot your lines?" In my previous life, after my father passed away, my mother remarried and paid little attention to me. The sudden loneliness left me desperate for a shoulder to lean on. So, when Ethan confessed to me, I didn't hesitate to say yes. He was very caring toward me, and after graduating from college, we got married. There was no dowry, no gold jewelry, not even a proper wedding. Ethan's family was poor. He was the golden phoenix who had flown out of the mountains through sheer effort. His mother was so thrilled to hear that he had married a city girl that she held a simple banquet in their rural hometown. We toasted the elders, and that was it. We were officially husband and wife. Back then, Ethan held my hand and looked at me earnestly. "Lila, I know this isn't much, but someday, when I have money, I'll make it up to you someday with a grand wedding." Ethan had promised me. I stood by him through it all, starting his business, staying up until 3 a.m. working on proposals, and living with him in a damp, freezing rental apartment. Finally, we built our own company and started earning money. But once Ethan gained success and confidence, he sought out the white moonlight he had longed for but couldn't have, Sophie, and decided to keep her by his side. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he held the bouquet. He wasn't looking at me but instead scanning the crowd as though searching for someone. A suspicion rose in my heart. Could it be? Before I could finish the thought, Ethan's eyes suddenly lit up. Clutching the roses tightly, he strode toward a corner of the crowd. Standing there was a meticulously dressed young woman. Her delicate eyebrows arched as she smiled sweetly. Her brown, wavy hair cascading in loose curls, half tucked behind her ear. She wore red stilettos that highlighted her long, fair legs and carried the latest Chanel handbag, exuding both elegance and allure. "Sophie," Ethan declared as he stopped in front of her. "I've liked you for a long time. I swear I'll never make the same mistake again. Please give me a chance to make up for the regrets of my past life. Be my girlfriend. I'm willing to give you everything." Ethan knelt on one knee as he spoke, his tone earnest and his eyes filled with longing. Ethan had always been a standout figure on campus. He had earned admission to this university as the top scorer in the province and, at 6 feet 0 inches with striking good looks, quickly attracted a flock of admirers. His name was a constant presence on the university's love confession wall. Sophie had initially joined the crowd out of curiosity, but she clearly hadn't expected to become the star of the scene. Being confessed to by such an outstanding man made her eyes gleam with a hint of pride. However, her gaze flicked to me, standing in the middle of the crowd, and confusion clouded her expression. She wasn't the only one confused. The cheering students around us fell silent, their wide eyes darting between the three of us. "What's going on? Wasn't he supposed to confess to Lila? Why is there a sudden switch?" someone muttered. I could almost smell the drama in the air. "Isn't it obvious?" another whispered. "Sophie's a star in the finance department, and her family's well off. Meanwhile, I heard Lila's dad passed away, and her family's company is filing for bankruptcy." These murmurs naturally reached Ethan's ears. His expression shifted as he turned to look at me, still standing in the center of the scene. For a moment, guilt and panic flickered across his face, but he quickly steadied himself, tightening his grip on Sophie's hand. Ethan raised his voice to address the crowd. "The decorations today were all set up for Sophie," he announced loudly. "Someone must have made a mistake and brought Lila here instead." Every gaze turned to me, some filled with curiosity, others with amusement, like spectators watching a drama unfold. The weight of their stares felt like needles prickling my skin. Ethan lowered his gaze to Sophie again, his expression tender. Raising 3 fingers high, he declared solemnly, "I swear to the heavens, Sophie is the only woman I'll love in this life. If I break this vow, may lightning strike me down." What a grand declaration. I glanced up at the clear, blue sky, half hoping some divine bolt would strike him where he stood. The students shifted their focus to me, waiting for my reaction. There was no way I could remain silent now. With a calm smile, I nodded and said, "I don't know what happened either. I was dragged here out of nowhere and nearly scared out of my wits. Good thing it's all just a misunderstanding. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known how to turn him down," I said with a smile. Upon hearing that I planned to reject him, Ethan's body noticeably stiffened. He narrowed his eyes as though wanting to say something but stopped himself. His expression turned grim. I pretended not to notice and continued, "Everyone else has already offered their congratulations. I can't fall behind, can I? So, I wish you 2 eternal happiness, a lifetime of mutual devotion, and that you'll never be apart, never separate. Indeed, a scumbag and his mistress should stay locked together, sparing society from their drama and keeping others safe." Ethan's attitude toward me seemed to sour. He took a step forward, clearly intending to say something, but I turned and walked away without giving him the chance. My roommate, Mia, followed behind me, her face filled with indignation. She even shot Ethan a furious glare before we left. When we got back to the dorm, Mia pursed her lips apologetically and said, "This is my fault. I shouldn't have dragged you into that. It made you look bad." I patted her head comfortingly. "It's not your fault. After all, Ethan was planning to confess to me. He just got reborn." I shrugged lightly. "There's no point in being upset. I already experienced the pain in my last life. It's not worth going through it again. The only thing I regret is how much I did for him back then." I thought back to everything I had done for Ethan. I stayed up until the early hours of the morning to help him build his business. To save money, I lived with him in a leaky, cramped wooden shack barely big enough for the 2 of us. For over 10 years, I commuted 2 hours each way by bus between our rented room and the office, just to ensure he had a hot meal waiting for him. I knew he had someone else in his heart, a white moonlight he could never forget. but I believed that years of companionship would outweigh a fleeting infatuation. In the end, my sacrifices only moved myself. But now, Ethan was just a poor college student, surviving on scholarships and part-time jobs. Half of the money he earned went back home to support his mother and younger brother. The bouquet of roses he gave Sophie today was bought from a flower shop near campus. And because it was Valentine's Day, it hadn't come cheap. In my past life, I had worried about his frugality and transferred him the money for the flowers as soon as I got back to the dorm. That way, he didn't have to go hungry for weeks afterward. This time, Ethan seemed to have forgotten how much he struggled to stretch every dollar back in college. I wondered if Sophie would compensate him for the flowers. Would she help him financially the way I had? I doubted it. I was curious to see if Sophie could maintain her romantic love with him without a stable foundation. As I let my thoughts wander, my phone suddenly rang. I answered, and Ethan's anxious voice came through the line immediately. "Lila, you've been reborn too, haven't you?" His tone was filled with certainty. It wasn't surprising. After all, I had behaved completely differently from how I had in our past life. Ethan wasn't oblivious. Of course, he could tell that I, like him, had been reborn. I didn't respond, but Ethan's voice grew more agitated. "I know I wronged you in our past life, but we've both been given a second chance. We should focus on building new lives for ourselves. If you're angry, take it out on me. But why are you trying to ruin my relationship with Sophie?" I had thought Ethan was calling to apologize. Instead, his first words were filled with accusations and blame. His tone was so absurd that I couldn't help but laugh. "What a joke, Ethan," I sneered. "Jealous of you? What is there to be jealous of? Is it that you can't even afford a meal? Or that you don't wash your dirty underwear for days? And you dare to bring up our past life? I must have been blind to have ever fallen for a scumbag like you. In this new life, you should crawl into some dark corner and stay there." Instead of coming out to discuss people, Ethan was clearly infuriated. If you hadn't said something to Sophie, why would she suddenly become so cold toward me? She was so happy when I confessed to her. Before we went back to class, she even kissed me on the cheek. I couldn't understand why Ethan immediately assumed it was my fault that Sophie was treating him differently. "You're a cheating piece of trash. And she's a mistress who got involved with a married man. The two of you are a perfect match. No one's trying to sabotage your relationship." My words made Ethan erupt. "Lila, you've gone too far. How can you say that? I only made the same mistake every man in the world would make. What's so unforgivable about that? And you, do you think you're so perfect? You're always striving to be the best. And then you expect me to do the same. All I ever wanted was to come home after work to a wife who spoke to me gently, with a warm meal waiting. But you pushed me to start a business, to work harder, to achieve more. If you wanted a better life, why didn't you go and fight for it yourself? Why did you expect me to create it for you?" I was stunned. I had no idea Ethan felt this way. In our past life, he had seemed grateful for the way I stood by his side, urging him toward success and glory. I shook my head, almost letting his words get to me. "You enjoyed the benefits I brought you while resenting me at the same time. Ethan, you're such a hypocrite. If you didn't like it, you could have chosen not to be with me. Why did you insist on having both?" Ethan fell silent. Just as I was about to hang up, he spoke again, his voice lower and lower. "I couldn't breathe under your pressure. I thought about divorcing you, but everyone around me kept saying how lucky I was to have a wife like you. They said I must have done something incredible in my past life to deserve you. That divorcing you would make me a monster. Like it would be a crime so unforgivable, I wouldn't deserve to live in this world." So, that's how he really saw me. As an inescapable burden, a suffocating force, and a source of endless pain. Taking a deep breath, I said firmly, "Ethan, it's all in the past now. I'm moving on with my life. And you should too. From this moment on, we're strangers. Our lives have nothing to do with each other." With that, I prepared to end the call, but Ethan suddenly shouted, "Lila, wait, hold on. What now?" I asked impatiently. "Transfer me the money for the roses," he demanded. I froze, thinking I had misheard him. "What did you just say?" "The money for the flowers," he repeated, without a hint of shame. "It was $521. Transfer it to me." Otherwise, I won't have anything to eat next week. I stood there, stunned for 5 seconds, and then burst into laughter. Tears streamed down my face as I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. Ethan, how can you be shameless enough to ask me for money? Did you forget who you bought those roses for? You weren't confessing to me, were you? Did you spend the money on me? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. And yet, you dare to ask me for money. But I did buy them for you at first. Ethan stammered, clearly realizing how unreasonable his demand sounded. Trying to save face, he hesitated before suggesting, how about you just send me $500? Forget about the extra $21. How generous of him, I thought, almost laughing at the absurdity. My voice was full of mockery as I replied, why don't you ask the person you gave the flowers to for the money? Go find your white moonlight, your goddess, Sophie. Ethan's face darkened, a mix of irritation and regret flashing across it. I asked Sophie, he admitted begrudgingly. She just gave me a look and walked away. She hasn't sent me a single penny. At that moment, I finally understood why Sophie had suddenly grown cold toward him. A guy who asked the girl he confessed to for the money he spent on flowers? No one would put up with that. I cursed my past self for being so foolish, for falling in love with such a stingy man. Suddenly, the frustration that had weighed on my chest since my rebirth dissolved. I grinned at Ethan, pretending to console him. Maybe she just forgot. Why don't you send her another message to remind her? But don't come to me about this again. All right? What if Sophie misunderstands? I added with exaggerated concern. Before he could respond, I ended the call with a cheerful farewell. I wish you all the best. Success and happiness in your future. I thought that was the last time I'd have to deal with Ethan. Even if we crossed paths on campus, I figured we'd just ignore each other. But to my surprise, only a week later, he blocked my way on the path back to my dorm. His expression was awkward, and he forced a stiff smile. Lila, can we talk? I didn't want to deal with him at all, but he stood in my way, refusing to let me pass. If anyone saw us, rumors would inevitably spread, and we'd be on the front page of the campus forum. With no other option, I agreed and followed him to a fast food restaurant off campus. Once there, I ordered an iced coffee and poked at the ice cubes with my straw before getting straight to the point. I've already made things very clear the last time we spoke. Whatever's going on between you and Sophie is none of my business. You don't need to come all the way here to warn me about it again. But instead of addressing my comment, Ethan frowned and asked, why did you only pay for your own coffee? I rolled my eyes at him, choosing to ignore his ridiculous question. What came next shocked me even more. Lila, he said, leaning forward, I need you to pay off my credit card. I almost reached out to feel his forehead, wondering if he had a fever. But then I remembered we had nothing to do with each other anymore. And yet, why did he feel so entitled to ask me for such a thing? Why should I help you pay off your credit card? I asked, genuinely curious. Ethan looked stunned, as if the question itself were absurd. Why? Because you always helped me pay it off before. It was true. In our past life, I had paid off his credit card every time he maxed it out. Whether he was treating people to meals, attending business events, or secretly buying luxury items for Sophie. You're right, I admitted calmly. But back then, we were married. As your wife, I had an obligation to help you. Now, we have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So tell me, how do you have the audacity to ask me to pay it off now? Ethan froze for a moment, then slammed the table in anger. Do you have to humiliate me like this? Lila, you're just jealous that I've found true love, and that I'm happier than you. You want to see me embarrassed. You're still the same petty woman, always nitpicking and holding grudges. I raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by his outburst. He took a deep breath and tried a different approach. Fine, consider it a loan. I'll pay you back double when I have the money. When you have the money? I repeated, my tone dripping with disbelief. That empty promise of his, the one I'd fallen for countless times before, was laughable now. I wasn't a fool anymore. In my past life, I loved him, sympathized with him, and willingly ate up every word he said. But now, why should I indulge him? I tapped Ethan's forehead lightly with my book and said, get a grip. Stop bothering me. If you don't, I'll post online about how you asked me to pay off your credit card and borrow money. I knew Ethan's pride was his weak spot, and I knew exactly what words would cut him the deepest. Ignoring the fury in his eyes, I walked out of the restaurant. Back home, the process of liquidating our family's company was finally complete. My mom called and asked me to come home. When I arrived, she was sitting in the middle of the messy villa, waiting for me. The crooked family photo on the wall caught my eye, and a wave of sadness washed over me. If only I had been reborn earlier, back when my dad was still alive. How much better would that have been? My mom pulled out a stack of documents, her eyes red-rimmed as she handed them to me. These are all yours, she said softly. Check them over. If there are no issues, we'll go get them notarized. My mom had always been the pampered wife, cherished and protected by my dad. After he passed, she became like a leaf adrift in the current, barely holding on. The fact that the company had lasted 6 months under her care was already a testament to her effort. I flipped through the documents. Just like in my past life, she had left most of the assets to me. I sighed and asked her, "Is that man treating you well?" Her face turned bright red, adding a hint of charm to her worn features. I knew the man she was with now loved her deeply, but he had one condition. He couldn't accept me. After their marriage, he spoiled her, spending generously on her and showering her with affection that rivaled my dad's. He even listed her as the sole heir to his estate. The only thing he forbade was any contact with me. We went to the lawyer together, signed the necessary agreements, and I wished her happiness for the rest of her life. Tears welled up in her eyes as she gripped my hand tightly. I haven't been a good mother, Lila. I'm sorry. I can't do it anymore. I'm so tired, and I can't handle this any longer. I nodded, patting her hand in reassurance. It was all I could offer. Maybe my bond with my family was just too fragile. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't hold on to anything. I was still lost in thought. But my mom's mood shifted the moment she saw a red sports car parked by the side of the road. She bounded toward it like a deer, her excitement palpable. Before the car drove off, she rolled down the window, waved at me with a bright smile, and said goodbye. I felt a lump in my chest, neither going up nor down. It was suffocating. Soon after, the money from the liquidation was transferred to my account. But I wasn't someone who could just sit around and spend money without doing anything. Maybe Ethan was right about one thing. I was too ambitious, always striving for perfection. But now that I had memories of my past life, why shouldn't I aim for something better? I shifted my gaze to the tech park. In my previous life, a senior from the physics department had poached some professors and their research teams from our school to start a new energy tech company. The project had struggled initially, with no one believing in it or willing to invest. They were on the brink of failure. But within a few years, it exploded in popularity, and the senior became a rising star in the industry. I glanced at the balance in my bank account and smiled faintly. In my past life, I had lived off scraps with Ethan, only to end up with nothing. This time, things would be different. In this life, I would become my own capital, rising to the top through my own efforts. I immediately contacted Quinn, the senior who had started the tech project. When he heard I wanted to invest, he personally led his team to greet me at the entrance of the academic building. The spectacle rivaled Ethan's previous confession in grandeur, if not surpassing it. The seniors were all very enthusiastic, their eyes practically gleaming as if they wanted to devour me whole. Quinn, however, quickly shut them down, scolding, "Behave yourselves. If you scare her off, I'll throw all of you into the gutter." After touring their project, Quinn looked at me anxiously. "We still have a lot of technical challenges to overcome," he admitted. "But give us 3 years. No, just 2 or 3. And we'll grow this into something big. We won't let you down." I trusted him. With my memories from my past life, I had even more confidence in the tech park than they did. I immediately agreed to invest, leaving just enough money for my tuition and living expenses for the next 2.5 years. The rest, I handed over to Quinn. The look in Quinn's eyes was beyond gratitude. He looked at me as though I were his savior, placing his right hand over his heart. He bowed slightly and said, "This isn't just about the money. It's my dream. A selfish one, really. dragging everyone along as I stumble through uncharted waters. Until today. I was about to give up. Then I got word that you wanted to invest. I interrupted him with a playful smile and a wink. You'd better pay me back well in the future. Quinn. Make me lots of money. But Quinn seemed to misunderstand something. I watched, puzzled, as his face turned red. On my way back to the dorm, I came across an amusing scene. Ethan and Sophie were having a heated argument at the entrance of the cafeteria. They were both well known on campus. Ethan, the handsome academic prodigy, and Sophie, the stunning star of the finance department. Wherever they went, they drew attention, and their public confession had already made waves. Now, a large crowd of curious students had gathered around, eager to witness the drama. Latecomers whispered to each other, trying to figure out what was happening. Sophie's sharp voice pierced the air as she jabbed a finger at Ethan's nose. I washed my hair, did my makeup, and spent 30 minutes picking out this dress for our date. And you took me to eat hot pot. Ethan, are you looking down on me? Or do you think I'm only worthy of eating garbage? Ethan looked utterly bewildered, fumbling to explain. What's wrong with hot pot? It's delicious. I smirked. Ethan was saving money. In our past life, we ate hot pot almost every day, a single bowl costing just a few bucks. Sometimes, we even packed the leftover broth to dip bread in for dinner. Not wanting him to feel inadequate, I used to hold him close and tell him how much I loved hot pot. He'd nod and agree while sneakily taking the only piece of sausage in my bowl. Not every woman could endure those kinds of days with him, and not everyone could appreciate hot pot the way I did. Now, in front of the crowd, Ethan's face turned bright red as he struggled to maintain his cool, confident image. Grabbing Sophie's hand, he tried to pull her away. Don't be mad. I'm just a little short on money right now. Once I start making money, you can eat whatever you want. Let's go. Don't make a scene. Everyone's watching. This excuse might have pacified the old me, but it clearly wasn't working on Sophie. She shook off Ethan's hand without hesitation, showing him no mercy. If you don't have money, then go earn it. She snapped. Falling in love when you have no money? What a joke. Dating does cost money. You can't just go to the park for every date, especially with someone like Sophie, who comes from a well-off family. Just one casual shopping trip for a dress costs her more than half of Ethan's monthly food budget. Let's not even mention birthdays, holidays, or anniversaries. For their 1-month anniversary, Ethan gifted her a jar of paper cranes. Once or twice, a handmade gift might feel thoughtful and novel, but by the 4th time, it's just plain cheap. Ethan worked hard. No doubt about that. Growing up in a rural area, he was used to living frugally. After I refused to bail him out financially, he started saving desperately. While he claimed he could succeed without me, no one understood the importance of money better than Ethan. But Sophie was his white moonlight, his one true love from his past life. Now that he had her, there was no way he could bear to see her unhappy. In just 1 month of dating Sophie, Ethan burned through more than a year's worth of savings and maxed out his credit card. He thought Sophie would be moved by his efforts, that she would sacrifice for him as I had, pouring her resources into his dreams or supporting his business ventures. At the very least, he expected her to act like she had in their past life, gentle and nurturing, showering him with praise when he was stressed and admiring him when he succeeded in business. Instead, Sophie stared at Ethan with a look of disdain as he tried to pull her closer. She sneered and turned to the crowd. You all be the judge. Last night, Ethan took his roommates out to dinner, spent over $1,000, and then called me afterward to ask me to pay the bill. We've only been dating for a month. Aside from the flowers he gave me when he confessed, he hasn't given me anything remotely decent. And now he wants me to cover over $1,000 at a barbecue joint in the middle of the night. The surrounding students broke into murmurs, clearly entertained by the drama. I wasn't surprised. I had, after all, spoiled Ethan in our past life. Back then, I had felt sorry for him and often found excuses to give him money. $300 today, $500 tomorrow. Over time, he grew to think it was normal for me to support him financially. Whenever he ran out of money, he'd come directly to me, expecting me to cover him without question. But Sophie wasn't me. There was no way she'd let Ethan leech off her. Ethan panicked, his face turning beet red. Having this situation exposed in front of so many people left him with no place to hide. But you didn't end up paying, did you? I paid for it myself, he protested. Sophie scoffed. Oh, that's not all. You even insisted on splitting the bill for our meals. I can't even have a proper dinner without splitting the cost. Ethan blinked in confusion. Why are you making a big deal out of this? What's wrong with splitting the bill? Sophie flicked her long hair over her shoulder, her tone dripping with scorn. Splitting the bill isn't a problem. But if that's the case, why am I even dating you? I could just eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want, and live however I want without you dragging down my quality of life. Don't you think that's an issue? But other girls are fine with splitting the bill. Why aren't you? Ethan protested again. Sophie raised an eyebrow and gave him a cold smile. Because I'm not other girls. Every time we eat out, I have to split the bill with you. Ethan had grown so used to girls who were willing to split the bill with him that encountering someone unwilling left him utterly baffled. Sophie shot him a disdainful look. Then go find a girl who's okay with splitting bills. I'm not one of them. If you can't handle it, let's just break up. The surrounding students erupted into a debate about splitting the bill. If they don't agree, they should break up. Someone said. If your spending habits don't match, it'll never work out. Exactly. He made such a grand confession. And look how quickly things fell apart. Dating costs money. You can't expect to have a relationship without spending anything. Hearing Sophie threaten to break up, Ethan's demeanor immediately softened. He pleaded, Sophie, don't do this. It's all my fault. I'm sorry. My scholarship is coming in soon. Once I get it, I'll buy you the lipstick you like. I turned my head away, stifling my laughter so I wouldn't draw attention. I had heard promises like this far too many times in my past life. Lila, my mom raised me on her own. Once we bring her here, she can help us with the kids. Lila, the business partner is about to transfer the funds. Once we get it, we'll use the down payment to buy a bigger house. Lila, my brother's fiancé insists on having a house before they get married. Let's transfer our house to him for now. Once the final payment is settled, we'll get a new one. Lila, this is my best buddy. His girlfriend likes your bag. Just give it to her. We're about to close a funding deal anyway, and I'll buy you an even better one. Not one of his promises had ever come true. Instead, my endless compromises only made his entire family think I was a pushover. But in this life, I wasn't going to be anyone's fool again. I wondered who they'd find to take advantage of this time. After the new year, Quinn invited me to visit their tech park to see the progress they'd made. As I arrived at the entrance, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan. He was holding a resume and fixing his hair in a small mirror. When he saw me, his hand trembled, and the mirror slipped to the ground. Lila, what are you doing here? His voice was filled with surprise, and his expression flickered with unease. Are you here for the interview too? I noticed a flash of wariness and hostility in his eyes. The tech park is only hiring elite talent. Do you know that I was the top scorer in the province? My current grades are still among the best. With me here, you don't stand a chance. You'd better leave now. I hadn't expected Ethan to be here for an interview. Ignoring him, I walked straight past him toward the building. He followed closely behind, his anxious tone betraying a hint of guilt. This place isn't for just anyone, he said hurriedly. Even if you know you don't stand a chance after seeing me, you can't just barge in. I knew exactly why he was feeling guilty. Ethan had worked himself to the bone doing part-time jobs to make money, often skipping classes. His grades had plummeted, and he'd lost his scholarship. Even with his memories from our past life, those were from 20 years ago. Aside from a few major events, what value did they have now? Who could remember everything perfectly? But like me, Ethan still remembered that the tech park would become a groundbreaking success. He wanted to use this early phase of development to secure a position for himself. Seeing that I had no intention of stopping, Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist. His grip was tight, sending a sharp pain shooting up my arm. Leaning in close, he hissed, "Go back. This isn't a place for you. If you keep going." "And if I do?" I cut him off. Before Ethan could answer, a large hand wrapped around my waist, and another shoved him away forcefully. Ethan let go of my wrist and staggered back, nearly losing his balance. When he turned to angrily confront the intruder, his fiery demeanor vanished the moment he saw who it was. Quinn. Ethan stammered, his tone instantly polite. Hello. I'm Ethan, a junior in the computer science department. I'm here to interview for a position at the park. I have plenty of ideas and plans for the park's development, and I hope to. Quinn didn't even acknowledge him. Instead, he turned his attention to me, gently taking my reddened wrist in his hand. Lifting it slightly, he brought it to his lips and softly blew on the irritated skin. His unexpected gesture made my heart skip a beat, and Ethan's eyes widened in shock. After shooting Ethan a cold glare, Quinn led me into the park to give me a tour. As we walked, we discussed various topics, and I shared everything I could recall from my past life about the park's growth and potential pitfalls. Quinn listened intently, and the way he looked at me gradually changed. Honestly, I felt a bit guilty. These plans and insights were the result of Quinn's own hard work and dedication in our past life. Yet here I was presenting them as if they were mine. I felt like a thief, but Quinn seemed to think I was being modest, and his appreciation for me only grew stronger. When we reached the office building, we saw someone escorting Ethan out. He was holding onto the person's arm, refusing to let go. Please, take another look at my resume, he begged. I was the top scorer in the province, and I've been on a scholarship throughout college. I'm truly exceptional. If you hire me, I'll bring unimaginable wealth to the park. The person struggled to free themselves but couldn't shake Ethan off and eventually grew impatient. Listen, just go back and wait for a response. Okay? You're only a junior. Focus on your studies for now. The message was clear. Ethan had been rejected. Even so, he remained stubborn, unwilling to give up. Finally, 2 security guards arrived and escorted him out. From a distance, I could still hear him shouting, "You'll regret not hiring me. I could save this park 20 years of hard work. Don't touch me. I can walk out on my own." I couldn't help but find the scene ironic. Ethan was still clinging to his past glories, using them as bargaining chips, while everyone else was moving forward. Quinn glanced at me and asked, "He's not one of your suitors, is he?" I chuckled and shook my head. No, his character is awful. Even if he tried to pursue me, I'd never say yes. Hearing my response, Quinn let out a small sigh of relief. Then, as if making up his mind about something, he suddenly grabbed my hand. I blinked at him in surprise, utterly confused by his sudden boldness. Quinn grabbed my hand and led me quickly toward his office. "I have a lot of plans," he said, glancing at me with a faint blush that extended from his ears to his neck. "I want your input on them." Despite his offer to drive me back, I insisted on going home by myself. As soon as I stepped out of the park, I spotted Ethan leaning against a wall. Judging by the time, he'd been waiting there for 3 hours. The moment he saw me, he jumped up, but it seemed his legs had gone numb from standing in the same position for so long. He stumbled and ended up on one knee in front of me. I quickly stepped back, alarmed. "I don't care if you're here to beg for reconciliation or pull some kind of scam. Either way, the answer is no." Ethan finally managed to stand, but my words made his chest heave with anger. He pointed at the tech park and accused me. "You took the money I needed for my startup and invested it here, didn't you?" I stared at him for a moment, realizing he was serious. He actually thought my money was his. "Ethan, is something wrong with your brain? That's my money. I'll spend it however I want, even if I throw it all away. It has nothing to do with you." Breathing heavily, he shouted back, "Then what about me? What am I supposed to do? You know I need that money for my startup, but you just took it all. You're so selfish. Do you know how important that money is to me? You're only doing this because you hate me and don't love me anymore." I couldn't help but think he was losing his grip on reality. But Ethan wasn't done. "How much do you have left? Give it all to me. It's useless in your hands. If you give it to me, I can multiply it 100 times once my business takes off." My face turned cold as I slapped away the finger he was pointing at me. "If there's something wrong with your head, go see a doctor. Don't push me to slap you." Ethan gritted his teeth, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Fine. I'll write you an IOU. Just treat it as a loan. In a few years, I'll pay you back. With interest. As he reached out again, trying to convince me, a fist suddenly slammed into his face, sending him sprawling to the ground. Quinn stood there, sweat glistening on his brow, his gaze dark and menacing like a predator locking onto its prey. Ethan scrambled back, clutching his face. His eyes darted between me and Quinn, and after a moment, something seemed to click. He pointed at me, his voice filled with venom. You're nothing but a two-timing whore. So this is why you gave him all your money. You. He didn't get to finish. Quinn's fist connected again, knocking out one of Ethan's teeth. Holding his mouth, Ethan ran off in a panic. After that day, Quinn started asking me out more frequently. Sometimes for dinner, sometimes for coffee. At first, he used the project as an excuse, but eventually, he began waiting for me outside the campus gates without any pretense at all. I poured all my energy into my studies in Quinn's project, but no matter how busy I was, I still heard about Ethan from time to time. My roommate, Mia, who had developed a deep grudge against Ethan after his earlier antics, made it her mission to keep tabs on him. Whenever she heard any gossip about Ethan, Mia always made sure to run straight to me whenever she heard the latest gossip about Ethan and Sophie's complicated love-hate relationship. Strangely enough, it became my guilty pleasure during moments of downtime. Lila, did you hear? Ethan got beaten up, Mia said, her tone brimming with excitement. He borrowed a lot of money from his friends, claiming he was going to invest in 2 stocks that would skyrocket. But after 6 months, those stocks have dropped instead of rising. Now his money's all stuck, and his lenders think he scammed them, since he couldn't pay them back. They sent someone to rough him up. I knew which 2 stocks she was talking about. Ethan hadn't lied. They would eventually rise. The problem was, it would take at least another 10 years for that to happen. Did he pay them back? I asked. Mia nodded. Ethan took out some online loans and scraped together enough to repay the debt. But apparently, he even asked Sophie for money. Not only did she refuse, but she also threatened to break up with him. And get this, they've already had 3 breakups this month. And it's only the beginning of the month. As she spoke, my phone buzzed with yet another call from an unknown number. Without hesitation, I blocked it. My blocked list was practically overflowing with calls from Ethan. I didn't have the time or energy to deal with him because graduation defense season had begun. Thanks to my stellar academic record, I received offers from numerous prestigious companies during the campus recruitment fair. Just as I was feeling overwhelmed by all the options, Quinn arrived at the event. By then, the tech park he led had become a key development project for the city, so his presence caused quite a stir. Quinn, however, wasn't there solely for recruitment. Under the guise of hiring, he had come to invite me to dinner. As he made his way toward me, someone stepped in to block his path. Sophie, holding her resume in both hands, looked at him with bright eyes and a seductive smile. Quinn, could you take a look at my resume? She asked, flipping her hair to reveal her swan-like neck. I'd like to apply to be your personal secretary. Do you think I'm qualified? Her posture exuded confidence, with her chest pushed forward as she leaned closer. The gentle smile Quinn had worn just moments ago vanished. His expression turned cold as he replied, "The park's recruitment is already complete." Sophie pouted and tilted her head, her voice sweet and coy. "Oh, come on. I didn't even see any recruitment notices. When did you fill all the positions?" "Just now." "Now, please step aside." Quinn sidestepped her outstretched hand and quickly jogged over to my side. After the event ended, Quinn went to get his car while I waited outside. That's when Sophie appeared again, blocking my way. She looked me up and down with a sneer, her gaze filled with disdain. "You and Ethan seem to have some kind of secret, don't you?" she began. "He's been looking for you constantly lately. How about this? I'll let you have Ethan, and you give me Quinn in return. If you think that's unfair, I can even compensate you. I heard your dad died. Your mom remarried, and you're basically an orphan now. Life must be hard for you." Huh. It was at that moment I realized spending too much time with someone stupid could make you stupid, too. Her logic was absurd, and I didn't even bother responding. Justifying myself would only make me seem guilty. Besides, I hadn't even seen Ethan more than a handful of times in this life. I did, however, feel a bit sorry for him. You're awfully generous, I said, smirking. I wondered how Ethan would feel if he heard Sophie casually offering to give him away. This was the woman he had longed for across 2 lifetimes. His so-called white moonlight. Sophie, oblivious to my thoughts, lifted her luxury brand handbag and twirled to show off her designer miniskirt emblazoned with a flashy logo, pointing at my plain, logo-less t-shirt. She sneered, "You're not worthy." Before I could respond, I noticed a figure approaching. My eyes flicked toward them, and I spoke playfully. "If you've already set your sights on another man, what about Ethan? He loves you so much and treats you so well." Sophie cut me off with a sharp laugh. "Loves me? Please. All talk and no action. He's just a broke loser. Dates at the library or the park. Meals at roadside food stalls. And for my birthday, he gave me paper cranes. Like I'm some little kid he's trying to fool. I'm only playing around with him. Who would actually fall for someone like Ethan? He's constantly bragging about his high school awards and saying, 'When I'm rich someday.' Someone like him will never make money. Not in this lifetime." I tilted my head slightly, my gaze shifting past Sophie to the figure behind her. "Do you think she's right?" Ethan. Ethan stood there, his bloodshot eyes filled with exhaustion. His unshaven chin and haggard appearance betrayed his sleepless nights from juggling multiple jobs. He looked as if he were teetering on the edge of collapse, and Sophie's cruel words seemed to be the final blow. In a sudden burst of anger, Ethan grabbed Sophie's shoulders and shook her roughly. "Haven't I treated you well enough? Every time we go out to eat, I'm the one paying. You refuse to eat street food, but you demand iced tea that costs over $30 a cup. On Valentine's Day, you wanted a $300 lipstick. That doesn't even include the money I sent you on anniversaries. Do you think I wanted to live like this? I borrowed money to start a business, and it was for our future. But not only did you refuse to help, you mocked me behind my back with your friends. How do you think that makes me feel?" Ethan's frustration boiled over as he tried to drag Sophie away, but she struggled against him. At that moment, a student ran up, calling out, "Ethan, your mom is at the school gate. She's crying and making a scene." Ethan froze for a moment before tightening his grip on Sophie and rushing toward the gate. Sophie tried to break free but couldn't, eventually letting herself be pulled along. I followed them at a distance. After all, Quinn was still waiting for me outside. When I reached the gate, I saw an older woman dressed plainly, sitting on the ground and slapping her thighs as she wailed, "Oh, how unlucky I am. I worked so hard to put my son through college, and now he doesn't send a single penny back home. When the family's in trouble, he hides and won't even show his face." Ethan's face turned bright red as he stood beside her, sweating profusely while alternately trying to pull her up and calm her down. But his efforts were futile, and his mother's cries only grew louder as more people gathered to watch. Through the whispers of the crowd, I learned the full story. Ethan's younger brother had broken into someone's home to steal. When the homeowner woke up, the boy panicked and stabbed them to death. He was now in police custody. I stood there for a moment, the pieces falling into place. In our past life, this had never happened because I had supported Ethan financially. He had sent most of his earnings back to his family, ensuring his brother had enough money and never felt the need to resort to crime. But this time was different. Sophie had not only refused to help, but she had also drained Ethan's savings. He had no money left to send home, leaving his family to fend for themselves. "You can't just ignore your brother," his mother cried out, her voice hoarse from screaming. "He's your own flesh and blood. Today, you must find a way to get your brother out. If you don't," Ethan's mother screamed, slapping her thighs and pointing at the school gate. "If you don't, I'll throw myself against the school wall and let everyone see what an ungrateful, heartless son I raised." She kept making a scene, her voice growing louder and more dramatic. Ethan, who cared deeply about saving face, looked as though he might drop to his knees in front of her. His face was drenched in sweat as he begged her to calm down. But she wasn't having it. "You need to find 300,000. You want to beg the victim's family for forgiveness," she demanded. Ethan's face was pale, his eyes wet with frustration. Suddenly, he grabbed Sophie's arm and pulled her closer. "Mom, this is my girlfriend," he said loudly, his tone almost desperate. "Her family is wealthy. She can lend me the money. He turned to Sophie, his eyes filled with pleading. The crowd turned their attention to her, waiting for her response. Sophie raised her hand and slapped Ethan hard across the face. You're asking me for 300,000? Are you insane? Why would I lend that kind of money to a murderer? And even if I did, how would you pay me back? Ethan's expression crumbled. He held his reddened cheek, murmuring, How did it come to this? We were so happy before. Even when I went bankrupt, I gave you everything I had left. Now I'm just asking for 300,000. And you? Sophie didn't let him finish. She glanced around at the watching crowd, her embarrassment plain. Biting her lip, she said coldly, Dating you has been more humiliating than being broke. We're done. Ethan, don't bother me again. With a toss of her hair, Sophie raised her chin and walked away with all the poise of a goddess, leaving Ethan standing there in stunned silence. Finding nothing more worth watching, I headed toward Quinn's car parked nearby. Sliding into the passenger seat, I apologized for being late and briefly explained the commotion at the gate. Quinn hadn't even asked about the incident when my phone rang. Surprised, I answered, only to hear Ethan's voice on the other end. Lila, lend me 500,000 yuan. Didn't you just ask Sophie for 300,000? Why is it 500,000 now? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Ethan didn't even pause. Just wire it to me. Here's the bank account number. Send it over now, and I'll get back together with you. I couldn't help but laugh. You seriously think I'd pay you 500,000 just to get back together? No. I had barely finished speaking when Ethan yelled, Don't be so ungrateful. I'm agreeing to spend this life with you. Besides, even if we never got married in this life, my brother called you sister-in-law for 20 years in the last one. You owe him. I scoffed, my voice icy. Why should I care about your brother? In our past life, he mocked me for clinging to you and called me old and unattractive, all while urging you to divorce me as quickly as possible. I owe him nothing. Ethan's voice grew louder, tinged with rage. Lila, we had 20 years together in our past life. Doesn't that mean anything? Isn't that worth 500,000? How dare he bring up those 20 years? I stayed silent, my hand tightening around the phone. Taking my silence as a sign of hesitation, Ethan grew more aggressive. My brother is only 18. Are you really going to ruin his life? Lila, are you heartless? How can you be so cruel? Ethan's voice cracked through the phone. Before I could respond, Quinn snatched my phone and growled into it, his deep voice laced with anger. Get lost. That single word carried a weight that ended the call. From that day on, I never saw Ethan again. As I packed up my belongings after graduation, I ran into Mia in the dorm hallway. She leaned in conspiratorially. Did you hear? Ethan couldn't borrow money from anyone at school, so he turned to loan sharks. Now he's working himself to death trying to pay it back. Apparently, a video of his mother seen at the school gate had circulated online, causing some small-scale backlash that tarnished the school's reputation. As a result, the university withheld Ethan's diploma. 4 years of study had gone to waste. There's also a rumor, Mia whispered, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. I don't know if it's true or not. She raised a finger for emphasis. I heard Sophie got pregnant. A chill ran down my spine. In my past life, Sophie's pregnancy was what pushed Ethan to divorce me. I hadn't expected her to have his child in this life too. Maybe they really were destined to be together. Apparently, she went to the hospital and had it terminated. Mia added. I nodded. Given Sophie's current status, she wouldn't want to have a child with a man drowning in debt and without a future. She had complications during the procedure. Mia continued, lowering her voice. She hemorrhaged. They say she'll never be able to have kids again. Fate, it seemed, had a way of balancing the scales. Those who betrayed genuine love would always face the consequences. Mia's eyes gleamed with curiosity as she looked at me. Lila, I also heard that you were one of the original investors in Quinn's tech park. Your lips are sealed so tight. I had no idea. You must be rich now. Sponsor me, please. I promised to treat her to a meal. And only then did she let the topic drop. As I left campus, carrying my things, I saw Ethan. He looked utterly defeated. His posture slouched. His face lined with exhaustion. His clothes were stained and gave off a sour odor. When his eyes met mine, he looked both sorrowful and resentful. "Lila," he said, his cracked lips trembling. "I didn't expect Sophie to be that kind of woman. She killed our child just because I had no money. Then she even had the nerve to sue me for damages." I didn't want to hear any more of his complaints. Stepping around him, I attempted to leave, but he blocked my path. "Lila, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, give me another chance. Let's start over. We'll get married. Rebuild everything together. Start fresh." I raised my hand, revealing the dazzling diamond ring on my finger. Smiling, I said, "I'm engaged. To Quinn." Ethan's legs seemed to falter, and he stared at the ring in disbelief. "Break up with him. Throw that ring away. I'll buy you an even bigger, better one." I looked at him with pity. "You still don't understand, do you? When you cheated in our past life, you sealed our fate. I never stopped you from chasing your so-called true love or living the life you wanted. So why are you regretting it now?" Ethan let out a bitter laugh, his voice filled with despair. "True love? Sophie was only with me for my money. She never truly loved me. The only one who ever did was you." He stepped toward me, his eyes filled with an intensity one hadn't seen before. "Lila, I know you still love me. Let's get married and go back to how things were. I swear, I'll never let you down again. If you want, I'll even propose to you right here, at the school gate, in front of everyone. I'll make sure the whole world knows that Ethan loves Lila." Before he could say more, the loud honk of a car interrupted him. Quinn stepped out of a Bentley, his expression calm yet commanding. Taking the things from my hands, he placed them in the trunk before turning to me with a small smile. I waved at Ethan, who stood frozen in place. "This time, let's really not meet again." With that, I got into the car, leaving Ethan behind for good.